Welcome to Comedy Centric, your place for all things comedy. Every week, we'll discuss the legends and the people who built the business. The performers, writers, behind the scenes, and stories that you have never heard. So relax, take a load off, and join us for this episode of Comedy Centric. Now, the host of your show, nationally headlining comedian, a woman with a wicked sense of humor and a killer Jersey accent, Julia Scotti.
Heidi-ho.
Hi.
Hi. Why do you smile like that, Kathy Caldwell?
Happy to be alive.
Are you really? You look taller in that seat. Are you sitting on a phone book or something?
I grew.
Oh, okay. You're gruesome.
I'm gruesome.
You're
I guess
gruesome?
I'm sitting on my foot.
Oh, okay. Oh, see, now you look normal height.
I know, but listen.
Yeah.
There, is that better?
No, but okay. What's going on?
How are you?
I'm all right. I have to get my garage door replaced.
Oh.
I came home from
happening?
Next week. I came home from a gig the other night. It was freezing, and I was, like you got the clicker, and I'm clicking, and nothing's happening. Nothing's happening, and then I had to. So that's a long story. Anyway, I'm getting a new door next.
You had to lift it up manually.
I know, and I've been here 15 years. I've never lifted that door up manually.
Well, that's why it's broken. You haven't replaced it in 15 years.
Oh, it's older than that. I've been here 15. The door was like 45 years old. So
it was time.
Anyway.
It's time for a new one.
Yeah, no, I just hate spending the money.
I know. Well, you hate spending the money for everything.
I do. I'm cheap. Anyway, what's going on with you?
I have a hypothetical question for you because
Okay.
I was talking to a friend of mine, and she told me this story. She's going to kill me for telling you this story, but she told me this story, and I didn't know how I would react, and I want to know how you would react. Okay, so now she has been friends with this other person for a while, and she goes to her house to stay. For a couple of days. It's a different town. And the friend hands her a washcloth and a towel and says, "Don't use the washcloth on your private parts." And she just looked at her and was like, "Are you serious?" And she was dead serious. Now, what would you do? Would you leave?
What was her problem with? That's what a washcloth is for.
I don't know, but she didn't want her.
Well, how is she going to prove it? Is she going to send it out to forensics and look for little hairs? What the hell is wrong with this woman?
I don't know what's wrong with it, but I thought that was but I would be offended enough. I think I'd be like, you know what? I'm cool. And I would pack up my stuff and I would leave.
I would know. I would have taken the shower and used a whole bar of soap and cleaned my ass with it. Just said, I didn't use the washcloth on my privates, but
I used something. You figure it out.
Use that soap.
Anyway, I thought that was a really bizarre.
So you would have gone home? You would have just turned around and went home?
I think I would have been offended enough that I'd be like, you know what? I thought we knew each other better. And
oh no, I would have spent the entire weekend ragging on him about it.
You would have been just rubbing your private parts on everything.
Well, no, I would have. Is this frying pan?
You get off the lamp.
Yeah. What the fuck is wrong with people? Jesus.
I don't know.
Anyway,
all right.
Let's talk about tonight's show.
The good guest.
We have a really good guest. Gabe Abelson, and again, all these people seem to go back to when I started comedy. I don't know anybody new. I only know people.
No.
I don't know you for 35, 40 years. I don't want to know you. But Gabe Abelson and I pretty much started out about the same time, around 1980. He started out as a comic, but he became successful. Unlike me, he went on to become the head monologue writer at the Letterman show for a year. For a long time, he's nominated for 5 Emmys. I mean, he's really done well as a writer, and he's on tonight. I'm really excited about it because I haven't seen him in. Oh, well,
you okay?
guest came up there.
Oh my goodness.
I was trying to suppress it, but
No, you did a shitty job of suppressing that.
I didn't think you noticed. I didn't think you noticed it, but so anyway, Gabe Abelson will be with us, and I promise not to burp in his face while we're here.
Don't make promises you can't keep.
All right. So we'll be back right after a short break, and we'll get to meet him. Hey, listen, my album, Julie Scotti Jersey Fresh, is available everywhere now. You can download it wherever you want, everywhere. It's really kind of funny. It's like $10. Come on, buy the damn thing, will you? And also, check out on the Dry Bar, my comedy special, Dry Bar Comedy. It's called Julia Scotti Jersey Fresh. So you can, it's my understanding that if you sign up for Dry Bar, you can see like 100,000 comics on there. But you, of course, have to watch mine. But you get a free month. I think it's still going on like that. So, again, my album, Primal Cuts, and my special on Dry Bar, Jersey Fresh. It's so simple. Come on, do it. Do it for me. Do it for your mom. I love you. Bye. Okay, well, we're back, and I'm back. Kathy's having connection problems again, so we're trying to fix that. But we're going to move ahead because that's the kind of a show we are. Nothing stops us. I feel like we're just moving. You know, we're like the Allies in World War II. I don't know what that means. Anyway, our guest tonight. I go back again to the beginning of my comedy career, his too, and to the old improv days. He is, well, of course, he's done a lot better than I have. Anyway, he's a 5-time Emmy-nominated comedy writer with credits at the Yin Yang, and we'll talk about them in just a little bit. He's just a sweetheart. Gabe Abelson, where are you? Come here.
I'm right here. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Frame this up, but we got a light on the painting app. Well,
what is that? Move your head so I can see. What is it?
Some modern art crazy poster deal. But
did you paint that? Is that you?
No.
Oh, it's a beautiful background. No, it really is nice.
Oh, thanks. Except for that light, which I'm trying to get rid of. But if I turn that off, I'm afraid we won't see. So
I know I have the same problem. If you look over my head, I look like I have a head. Don't worry about it. We're okay. Okay. Hi.
Hi, Julia. How are you?
It's been. I was trying to remember the last time I saw you. It had to be.
Oh my gosh, it has to be the comic strip, and it's got to be close to 30 years ago.
Yeah, and I swear to God, every time I see a picture of you, I go, that son of a bitch never gets older. You look great. You look great. You really look good.
Thanks. So do you. You look great too.
I know. I haven't changed a bit.
Not at all. Not an iota.
Well, you just got back from Africa, didn't you? You were
yeah. I was over there. I've been doing a lot of traveling lately, and I plan to stay put for quite a bit now.
Was that a vacation or just work?
Yeah.
Well, you want to talk a little bit about that? I mean, where'd you go?
I went to Dakar, and then I went to a beautiful island off the coast called Cape Verde.
I've heard of it. Okay. And you were there you were there for like a month, weren't you? Or close to it?
Yeah. Well, 2 weeks. I was there for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you go by yourself or you?
I did. I go pretty much everywhere by myself now because no one wants to travel with me. Now my kids are grown, you know, they have their own lives, and so yeah, and I'm single now, so I travel.
It's weird, isn't it, that we look at our kids, they're like 30 in their 30s. It's like, I can't possibly be.
Crazy when I think of how much younger I was when I started at the comic strip. It's just bizarre. It's very weird.
It's one of the we've had a number of our colleagues are that, you know, from our generation of comics on here. They all and I always am curious about the directions they take after stand up. You still do stand up, correct? But it's not your.
I do stand up, and I do more than that in terms of performance. I do a mentalism show now, mind reading, suggestion, persuasion, not hypnosis, but it's almost like waking hypnosis. It's really different. And obviously
That's
there's
cool.
comedic elements to it, but it was something that I found as a hobby about 15 years ago. And about 10 years ago, I said, I want to do this on stage, and I'm far more passionate about it than performing comedy. You know, I love teaching I work with stand-ups. I work with some very high-profile stand-ups privately, and then I teach a writing for late night class at Flappers University. And at this point in my career, I think it's my favorite thing to do, because I have students on almost every talk show on the air, and it's so great to have people come in not knowing how to do this, because it's a very, very specific skill related to stand-up, but not like stand-up.
What are we talking about? Writing or
yeah, writing for late night, television. So that's the
Okay.
class, writing for late night TV. And being able to pass on, you know, what I've learned not only in 30 years in television, but 42 years in comedy, it's just very, very rewarding to turn out these people who are young enough to get the jobs that I don't get anymore. So, you know,
I've heard that, and I've heard that from a couple of people about, you know, getting the jobs and, you know, almost feeling aged out of something. But we'll get to that in a second, because I'm going to take a step back to the beginning. You and I started, I guess, at the Improv and the Strip, and now the Catch, what they tore the building down, I think, a couple of days ago. Sad, very, very sad. But it was a different time for us, and I always wonder, was you first of all, I was surprised to find that you studied under Lee Strasberg, studied acting. That I never knew. Was that your original intent to
It was. You know, now you can major in comedy at several universities. You couldn't do that back then. I kind of already knew I wanted to be a comic, so acting was the closest thing. So it was great. You know, my father taught at NYU, so I got in there automatically. And so you could choose your studio, and I chose Strasberg. You could choose Strasberg, Stella Adler, Circle in the Square, Experimental Theater. I chose Strasberg, went there, and then I did a lot of radio commercials when I graduated, because I did a lot of impressions. So I did a lot of sound-alike commercials. But as soon as I graduated, I went up to the comic strip and I auditioned, you know, and then I didn't look back. I did the commercials on the side, but I never really had this drive to pursue acting or theater or anything like that. It was always stand-up. And then late night was something that I totally backed into.
That's what Jeanette Barber said, the same thing. She it was almost accidental
it was almost accidental. I mean, if I can just briefly, Bill Maher's first show, Politically Incorrect, was in New York on Comedy Central.
Right.
And I've been doing stand-up for 14 years. And I got hired to do warm-up, and I did warm-up. And one day I watched Bill's monologue, and I don't know why it never hit me in all the years of watching Letterman or Carson, but I thought of a joke, and I said to the EP, Scott Carter, who you know, and I said, Scott, if I have an idea for a joke for Bill, how does that work? Do I tell you? Do I tell Bill? He said, well, we have a fax team. You know, you fax it early in the morning, and it's kind of a thankless job. You'll be writing a lot of jokes. If you sell one, it's $50 a joke. And Bill only does 6 jokes, and we look to our staff writers first. But if you want to try it, here's the number. So I wrote like 10 or 20 jokes the first day out of the newspaper, and I sent him. And the very first night I tried it, 3 out of the six jokes that Bill did were mine.
Wow.
They were half the monologue. So I thought, oh my God. And so you know how humbling this business can be. So in the next night, nothing. The next night, nothing. So I thought, okay, it was a fluke. But then the next night, 1, then the next night, 3 again, then 2. And after a few weeks, Scott called me up and he said, we want to put you on retainer, meaning we're not hiring you as a staff writer, which is ironic because that's what brought me out to LA eventually, was as a staff writer when it became a much bigger show on ABC. But I'd already had Letterman under my belt. You know, it's that classic catch-22 of like trying to get into SAG. Well, you've never written for a TV show, so we can't hire you for Politically Incorrect, you know. So I did this faxing, and I was thrilled because already that was 94. The money had already gone down in the clubs by 94.
Yeah.
So now I was making this extra $400 a week doing this, and we had daytimes free as stand-up, so I loved doing this. It was a skill I didn't know I had. And then they moved out to LA. They cut the fax program for whatever reason. And I was doing a one-nighter with, God rest her soul, Adrienne Tolsch, who I know you know from stand-up, brilliant comedian. And I had my packet with me. And I said, what do you think? Because her husband was the head monologue writer for Letterman, Bill Sheff. I said, what do you think? She said, these are really funny. Send them to Bill. And he gave me sort of the same talk that, hey, it's kind of a thankless job. I got 13 factors here. It was a little more money. It was 75 because it was CBS. And I did the same thing. And the exact same thing happened after about a month or so. Bill called me up. He said, we want to put you on retainer. It was a little more. I think it was like 500 or 600. But it was the only late night show, and to this day, the only late night show I've ever worked on where there was only one monologue writer on staff, and that was Bill Sheff. Because, he was Dave's best friend. They were extremely close, and he took it upon himself to make that his department. So he had about 13 factors, but none of the other writers wrote for monologue. It was his own little section. So when I knew there would be no room for me to get a job there, but I've never been one to plan my career. So one day out of the blue, Bill calls me after 6 months and he says, I'm leaving the show to write a book. Would you be interested in my job? And it was one of those like where you remember what you were wearing, where you were standing. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, I just worked the Chuckle Hunt in Indianapolis. I don't want to be head writer.
Come on, I'm very busy.
Who cares about going to the Emmys every year, So, so he said, I just want you to know there's 4 other guys on retainer, but I think you have a good shot. Dave really likes your stuff. You're a comic. And so I had the interview. I have a couple of stories about the interview, but it went well. Okay, so I'll tell you one quick story.
Okay.
So before I take the interview, Sheff was giving me some advice. And he said, look, at some point, Dave is going to try and throw you off your game. He's out of nowhere. He's going to say something like, do you like red meat? Just to see how you roll with the punches, So I said, okay, I'll make a mental note of that. And he never did that. All we talked about was comedy, really. And the very first thing he said to me when I walked in was, do you know Mitch Walters and Uncle Dirty? And of course, I knew both of them.
Really well. Right, sure.
Really well. I'd worked with both of them. And so we talked about that. And then, a chef called me up a few days later and I got the gig. This is another story there. But in any case, so I get the gig and I thought, well, that was really cool. He never tried to throw me off my game. And years later, Tom Green is like one of my closest friends in the world. I was a head writer on his show, and he's so different than the person I thought he was. After Letterman, he's probably the brightest, most creative person I've ever worked with in television. And I've worked with a lot of people. But Tom said to me only a few years ago, I said, he never asked me that red meat thing to throw me off. And Tom said something so perceptive. He said, that question about, Uncle Dirty and Mitch Walters. I said, yeah. He said, that was the red meat question. He said, you told me the other guys up for the job were not stand-ups. I said, yeah, that's true. And he said, that was the red meat question. And that landed you the gig. Because he wanted to know, he wanted someone that like Bill Sheff, who had been up there doing stand-up and knew what it was like to have their own ass on the line every night. So
well, like if we can zero in on that a little bit, because I can't even imagine. You're the sole writer of the monologue of a network television show. You come into work the first day. Do you just throw up, or do you cry?
Yeah, pretty much. I'll tell you what made my first day even worse. The day before my first day. And by the way, it was my first job. To this day, arguably my biggest job in TV. My very first job was head monologue writer for Letterman. So talk about being intimidated. So the night before I start on the job, Princess Diana got killed.
Oh my
God!
I got to tell you this. You know where I was that night? I was in.
Don't tell me you were in the limo.
I wasn't but I was in Wildwood, New Jersey at that Club Casbah. You're writing the monologue for Letterman. That's career-wise. That's where we were. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I mean that's where I was too. That's how this business is. I was at the week I got Letterman. After I already got it, I didn't cancel the weekend, but I was at the Callaloo Cafe for Gary Grant
Morristown.
In Morristown, and the person I was on the show with was Gary Greenberg, who was a student of mine who ended up being the head writer for Jimmy Kimmel, and he's been there for like 15 years as the head writer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I should have hung out with you more.
So it's just, the thing is, I never really found out who I was on stage, and that's everything. I mean, to watching your career skyrocket the way it has, and you figuring it out is just, that's what I always wanted to be able to do, but never quite got it. And I think that's why I found more success in writing for other people than writing for myself.
That's an interesting point, because prior, I had, I went away for 10 years. I was away from comedy for 10 years. And when I transitioned, that was the beginning of really understanding who I was on stage. And I used to yell at myself because I never felt like what I was doing was true. It just wasn't ringing true with me. And then once I came back, the two criteria, and I've said this before, that I had, well, I had to be fearless and it had to be totally truthful. And that's it's a hard thing to get to. It sounds simple, but it's
very.
But thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
No, like hearing stuff from you.
So no, I think it's terrific. I mean, it's not somebody that just started and isn't really ready for it and doesn't quite have it. I mean, the fact that you did it and then quit for 10 years, it was very hard for me to get back into it and get my sea legs again, and had this major success after coming back, after the time off. Is just incredible to me. I mean, a really very impressive.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm really happy. I just well, I don't want to talk about me. I want to talk about you while I got you here. So we'll talk. Well, you and I can talk off camera about stuff. So you stay at Letterman for how long? For over a decade?
Almost 5 years, 4.5 years.
5 years. Okay. Yeah. And then, so you leave on your own accord, or you?
No, Bill came back to the show.
Okay.
And so he said to me when I left, which is true, he said, once you've worked here, especially being here as long as you have, because it's a revolving door in late night. Yeah. You only work in 13-week contracts. And you would know the names if I mentioned to you people that I saw work there for 13 weeks and then fired. And it has nothing to do with their work. I mean, people that went on to some really big stuff, just it's personalities, politics, whatever. Right. So once I got out of there, I did a couple of pilots for MTV in New York, and then I got an offer from Bill Maher's show out here, and that's what got me to LA exactly 20 years ago.
I admire, I'm in awe of you being able to sustain a career, not just sustain it, but propel it forward year after year, writing for other people, because I don't know that I could do that. I'm looking at the list of people you've written for. What did you do for Nathan Lane?
Oh, when Hillary Clinton, it's so bizarre, because again, how old does this make you feel? So in the year 2000, she had her 53rd birthday. That's which now sounds so young to me.
Yeah.
And that's when she was running for the Senate. So it was a Senate campaign / soft money fundraiser for her at Roseland Ballroom, right across the street from Letterman.
Sure.
So they hired all the head writers of the New York shows. At that time, it was Conan and Daily Show, and it was produced by Miramax. And so Chef was also a writer on the show, as was Jeff Stilson, Allison Silverman, a lot of major writers, Jonathan Groff. We all contributed towards, there were a bunch of presenters over the course of the night, big stars, Tom Cruise, and Nathan Lane and Chevy Chase, all these people. And so we wrote jokes for them. I also helped write a sketch that Clinton did with Robert De Niro. That was unbelievable. Is
that on YouTube?
No, the whole thing was a private thing.
I want to just sort of pause on that for a minute. You're hired for this special. You're given the task to write for X person. Let's say Nathan Lane in this case. Right. What's the process behind that? Do you get paired up with other writers? Are you in that room with other writers, saying, what do we write for Nathan Lane? Does Nathan come in and say, this is what I want? How does that work?
Well, Nathan was basically emceeing the show. It was just sort of a cavalcade of stars coming to the mic. So really, at least for me, when and every talk show I've worked on, when I'm writing just jokes, monologue type jokes or MC type jokes, that's sort of a solo job. It's when you're putting together like sketches for late night talk show, or in this case, sketches for the players. That's when you kind of bounce stuff off each other and shoot across ideas. And then, and then whoever the head writer is would put all of that together, take the best lines or the best angle or whatever, and put that all together for the sketch. But to write like just wild lines for that, like I've been a head writer on a number of award shows too, and the writers just write their own jokes, and then I'll just put it together.
Do you know who you're writing for at that point? They tell you,
yeah.
Okay. So what do you do? And I'm doing this because we do have comedians watch this podcast. So I'm kind of I'm picking your brain. I kind of know some of these answers, but maybe not. So you're writing. Let's say you're writing for the Emmys. Let's say you're writing for the Emmys. All right, and you're writing for a presenter. What's that process? Do you talk to the presenter first and say, sort of clear topics with them, or do you just write the topics or write the jokes and bring them to them?
More often than not, I mean, I may have one or two words with the presenter, but just as often, I don't have anything really for them. I'll just, I'll write the lines, and then whether it's the head writer or it's the particular performer, we'll pick which ones they want to use. Obviously, I know what they're introducing. If they're, doing an award for whatever, best cinematography, I might have a joke for a couple of the nominees, and all of that gets folded into their part of the script.
Okay, so how soon let's say the show is next week? You've written the jokes already, correct? How far in advance do you get that assignment?
It can be really fast. I've had to do it with like a 1 week turnaround to write an entire award show. Sometimes, yeah, I know it's insane. Sometimes I've had 6 weeks. But yeah, sometimes everything has to be done in 1 week, and that's including, basically making a shooting script out of it. So you have all the act breaks and who's introducing whom and the stage directions as to where people stand, and so yeah, I mean sometimes that has to be done in a really short period of time.
Wow, you have my admiration. What'd you do for Bill Hicks? You wrote for Bill Hicks?
No, I never wrote for Bill Hicks. I performed with him.
Oh, performed with Bill Hicks. Okay, I'm sorry, my bad.
No, it's okay.
Were you on that
stuff?
What?
I said, I wish I could claim that I wrote all that brilliant material Bill used to do.
You should have just claimed it anyway, and people would, were you at Letterman after 9/11, or was that before you?
I was with him on 9/11.
Oh,
yeah.
Can we talk about that coming back that night?
Yeah.
What the hell was that like?
Everybody obviously was in total shock, and Dave didn't totally understandably didn't feel like doing a monologue because he thought it just felt too trivial. So he did that incredible monologue, a serious monologue from behind the desk, and everybody sort of followed his path on that. He did such an incredible job with that, and it was a few nights before we went back into really doing a full monologue.
I remember that. Yeah.
And he would test the water. Like, for instance, after 2 days, he said, okay, I might do one joke tonight, but I'm going to do it from behind the desk. Now, we used to have Dave used to have these templates that he liked. And one of them was the guy who stands outside the Ed Sullivan Theater, who every day on his way into work gives Dave the finger. There was no guy like that, but it was the setup for many, many jokes. Like, for instance, one of them in the summer was, Paul, there's a guy who stands outside the Ed Sullivan Theater, and every day on my way to work, he gives me the finger. You know this guy? And Paul Schaefer would go, yeah, I know the guy, Dave, I know the guy. He'd say, well, today, because it's summer, he faxed me the finger from the Hamptons. So A very Dave joke.
Oh my God! You wrote that? That's a great
No,
joke.
it's a guy. I don't remember who wrote it. It's a very Dave joke, though. Probably the boys. So I'll talk about later who wrote the Carson. But in any case, so the joke, the very first joke that he did back from after 9/11, 3 nights later from behind the desk, because again, it felt too trivial to him to stand up in front of an audience and tell jokes. So from behind the desk, he said, it's great to see New Yorkers coming together during the most difficult time in our history. New Yorkers are just, everybody's supportive. In fact, there's a guy who stands outside the Ed Sullivan Theater. Paul, you know the guy, right? Yeah. Every day I walk into work, he gives me the finger. Well, today he gave me the finger and a hug. And
what a perfect joke. Oh my God, that's a perfect joke.
Perfect joke. You still have the edginess of him giving you the finger, the hug, being supportive, and that whole kind of reaction to it.
Was that yours? Did you write that?
It was not mine. No, it was not mine.
It's beautiful.
Right. So far, it's making him sound like I just took everybody's.
I brought sandwiches. That's what I did.
I'll tell you my favorite one in terms of just a personal one that meant a lot to me. It wasn't the best joke I wrote necessarily, but when Dave had his heart surgery, he had the quintuple bypass.
Right.
And, that's a major operation. His father passed away, at a younger age. So no one knew if he'd make it back or what condition he'd be in. So when he made it back, he told a joke that night at the end of the monologue. And my joke was reprinted the next day in the New York Post, like on page 2 and 3, going across the whole thing.
My God! I hope you have that framed.
And,
you have it framed?
Yeah, I did. I have it. And the joke was, when I found out I needed a quintuple bypass, my entire career flashed before my eyes. And honestly, it was mostly awkward silences, which once again wouldn't work for anybody else. But for Letterman, it's self-deprecating. You can't get too self-deprecating with Dave. So that was fun. And then if we have a lot of comics watching, one thing I do like to do is sort of briefly just tell you a monologue joke and deconstruct it and tell you how it's different from writing stand-up.
Wonderful.
Basically.
Yeah, please do.
So the main way a monologue joke gets written, and it took me years, and this is why, even though my class is mostly stand-ups, sometimes it sort of short circuits what we've been taught. The worst thing you can do in writing a monologue joke is try to come up with a funny punchline. It doesn't work, because then you'll tend to go towards wordplay, and it's just not going to hold together. The way you come up with a monologue joke is to find out what your main topic is and try to find an association to that topic that ties in a perfect but very unusual and unexpected way. So, I mean, that formula is used in stand-up as well, but usually stand-up is more experiential. You go to the store, that's funny, you got to write that down, something has to happen to you in life for you to think about it. With monologue jokes, half the joke is written for you because you're just taking it right out of the news.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because I've tried to deconstruct my own stuff so I could figure out how to write more of it. And it's finally occurred to me that my style, whatever it is kind of, it parallels what you just said. I'll take the experience and just state it first, and then find some backdoor to get in.
Right. Yeah. So this was during the Clinton scandal, and so every night we close with a Monica Lewinsky joke. And remember, again, this was 25 years ago. Since then, Letterman has expressed, and I'm sure this is true of everybody, that we wouldn't be doing Monica jokes today. It was victimizing some, it was just not right. But that's just how it was, a different era, So every night it was a joke, and it was about the sex act, and everybody knew what the sex act was. And so we didn't have to use any profanity, but because the audience knew exactly what was going on, it was a dirty joke that was clean enough for TV, therefore would get the biggest laugh. Dave was the most scientific in how he approached the monologue of anybody I've ever worked with in late night, because he would start with the closing joke, which was always a borderline blue joke. And then he would pair up, that was joke 8. He would pair up joke 6 and 7, then pair up joke 4 and 5. And jokes 1 and 2 were usually throwaways, like, I was walking through the park today and, it's raining so hard, I saw a squirrel scotch guarding his nuts, or something like that. Some dumb throwaway, I know. But there was an arc to it. There was a story arc to his monologue. You never saw Dave going, let's see what else is going on in the news.
Yeah, that is true.
So many comics do that, and so many hosts do that. You never saw Dave do that. It was seamless.
Yeah. That is true. And now that you pointed out, you're absolutely right. Yep.
Yeah.
So he would. Somebody. I want to be real specific about that. He would actually go pair up joke 2 with 8 or whatever that formula you just gave me was. That was actually an intentional.
No, we would do that sort of after the fact. I would, it's almost like the detective with the push pins and the yarn,
right,
trying to figure out a pattern. I would try to find a way to make one flow into the others. I mean, the throwaways were obvious; those would go at the beginning. A cab driver joke would follow walking through the park because it's New York. And then, at that time, whether it was Clinton or Bush, I was at Letterman still for part of Bush's administration. It would be, let's say, joke 3 would be Bush and joke 4 would be Cheney.
So was he involved in that? Once you wrote the jokes, was he involved with the position?
Dave and I, we would go over the positioning. Yeah. And Dave obviously made the ultimate call of what he wanted,
right,
but it was always clear that there was once we left rehearsal, it was clear what was the closing joke. There was never up in the air about that.
The monologues were always spot on. Yeah, they were. There was that. I love the show. I mean, especially if you're a comic, you'd have to love that show.
Yeah.
Did you get offers to go to Craig Ferguson after? Was that ever offered to you?
What happened was I was with Bill Maher till that show went off the air in 2002, and this was at CBS Television City in Hollywood. They shoot every network show, not every show, but all networks shoot there. And Bill was ABC. Dennis Miller was across the hall, which was HBO, and then down the hall was CBS Late Late Show with Craig Kilborn. So by that time, I'd kind of gotten to know the head writer at Kilborn and the VP of late night programming there. Plus, it was produced by Letterman. So when Bill Maher show ended, I just went down the hall and started working at Craig Kilborn.
No, did I say Kilborn? I meant Ferguson.
I was not. I was gone.
Not on that show. Okay, just out of curiosity.
I left Kilborn to work with Tom Green. So I just wanted. Can I just tell that one joke? Just
sure.
So I can construct it. Okay. So after Clinton got caught with Monica, 2 months later, he hired 2 spiritual advisors to come and pray with him in the White House. And I thought, well, that's just a typical politician's gesture. Look, I'm sorry, I have people coming to pray with. So. Now I know I want to write a joke. Now I know where I want to get to. I know what it's going to be about. Monologue doing what she did, Monica doing what she did. In the beginning, I have something to work with, which is spiritual advisors. So now I'm working not on finding something funny, but on finding an association. So I go, let's see. They wear robes. Well, Monica had the blue dress with the DNA stain. Maybe there's a tie-in. Not that close. The wine, the wafer, confession. Maybe there's a confession. Clinton confessed, no. They pray, they're on their knees, and that's that light bulb moment when the joke is written. And now all I need to do is put the wording in the right place. For instance, the first way I wrote that punchline, the joke ended up being President Clinton hired 2 spiritual advisors to come and pray with him every week at the White House. Great, just so we need more people in the Oval Office on their knees.
There it is, yeah.
That was the closing joke, and the audience knows what's going on. Big laugh, dirty joke, whatever. Now, the original way I wrote that joke is just what we need, more people on their knees in the Oval Office. It would still get a laugh, but not as big a laugh because knees is the punch word and it must come last in the sentence. And because of that, the essential information in the setup has to be backloaded to the end of the setup so we remember it when we hit the punch word after the punch line. So it's very formulaic. If you're a formulaic stand-up, you're a hack. But in late night, you sort of have to be formulaic. That's why you hear the languaging again and again, like da-da-da-da-da, or as we call it, blank. I mean, you see Conan do it, you see Fallon do it, da-da-da-da. Apparently, you'll hear this language very over and over again, and there's a reason why it works. So there's really no such thing as being too formulaic in late night.
That's interesting. And it's also interesting that you're saying that you couldn't if you do it as a stand-up, you're a hack. And we don't have time for me to think that through. To challenge you.
We don't have time to go through all the ways you're a hack, but
no. But to challenge that theory, and I have to really, I may have to call you and argue with you on the phone over that one.
Sure.
Or maybe not. Maybe I'll just call and say you're absolutely right. But it's an
Oh
interesting.
no,
It's an
I'm
interesting.
I'm up for a good argument anytime.
No, uh, I'm trying to think of who does that in stand up that we know, even in the past. You know, an Alan King might have done it. That formula with the setup punch kind of thing. We don't
Yeah,
do that anymore though, because
right,
what
right.
they consider a hack. Yeah, interesting.
Well, I mean, some people, I mean, it's pretty much what Rodney did, and he told like 240 jokes an hour.
My God,
Um,
I was talking to someone about that. Yeah, but you would never call Rodney a hack. I
Never, no,
wouldn't
but
anyway.
I'm saying I don't think setup punchline or one liner is necessarily hack at all. Um, I- even you look at a guy like Jay London. You know Jay London, right?
Of course, I haven't heard his name in 100 years. Oh my God, yes, of course.
I saw him in a movie the other night, a major motion picture. I don't remember what it was, but I was like, "Oh my God, that's
Wow.
Jay London."
We have
Uh,
to explain to the audience who Jay London
yeah,
is.
so Jay London was he looked like a member of a heavy metal band. He had like
Yeah,
black hair down to
like
here,
Gene Simmons
denim
kind
vest
of.
that was cut off, chains. I mean,
Yeah.
just looked like a dangerous character, yet was the kindest, most soft-spoken
Yes.
guy. It was
Yep.
completely different than his image. And his jokes were silly. They were one-line silly
Mhm.
jokes. But you could never call him a hack because just the whole way he weaved it together with that character was so original. There isn't another
It
Jay
was like
Leno.
Rodney. I mean, Rodney pulled it off because he
Exactly,
was, it was a,
exactly.
yeah. So well, I'm sorry. What about Jay? You saw him in a movie, a new movie?
Um, I saw it in some. It was a movie or TV show, and I don't remember what it was. He played. I think he might have even been playing. Yeah, he was playing a stand-up. He was on stage. I don't remember.
Wow.
I don't remember.
Wow.
But
Good for him. Good for
good
him.
for him. Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a guy who's persisted. I guess what I'm saying is I'm not saying it's the setup punchline thing that's hacky. It's the fact that we use formulas over and over again.
Whether we know them or not, we
No,
could
I
be
mean for late night. For late
naturally
night,
do it. Oh, for late night. Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah, we
Specifically
use
for late night.
formulas
Yeah.
over and over again. Whereas in stand-up, we don't really. The good comics don't really use formulas. They write
Yeah.
as they write, as things happen.
Did you
But they're
find that habit transferred to you when you were doing stand-up, though, that you were so used to writing that way that it became part of your own
I found
stand-up?
that it helped me tremendously in terms of being more concise with my jokes
Mhm.
because it's all about late night is all about being concise. Like there's no handbook. I love teaching this stuff because I wish there had been a guy like me, not that I'm great, but just I'm freaking old who had been
Right.
around that could tell me, no, don't write jokes that are more than 3 lines long and give them to a host. No, don't put that word here, and that's really, I mean, very small part of it. But what I do for my class is I teach them not just how to do this, what to do, but what not to do that can lose you, the job. Maybe one joke in your packet might be a red flag that could lose you the gig. So,
What I
um,
love about this interview and watching you is the enthusiasm you have. It's so reminiscent of when we were young or the young comics, and we just had that fire. You still have that fire with regard to writing
with
for
regard to teaching,
and
not
teaching. Yeah,
kidding, but
it's wonderful to see. It's
I love
beautiful
it.
to see. You talked about some of the people that you've taught that have gone on. Do you want to name a couple of them?
Yeah, I had my first Oscar winner this year, actually. I've had a few
Wow.
Emmy winners. I had my first Oscar winner. A guy took my class out here at Flappers Comedy Club in Burbank, a great comic. I mean, I don't want to take any responsibility for how funny he is. His name is Trevon Free. And he took my class, and he pretty quickly afterward got a job on, I believe it was Daily Show. Then I think he was on Colbert. Then he went to Samantha Bee. And yeah, I knew he was working in TV. I didn't know was working in film, but he wrote a film called Two Distant Strangers, a short, and it won Best
Okay.
Short at the Oscars this year.
Wow.
And a very heavy movie. It's going to sound bizarre, but it is bizarre. It's basically, remember the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray?
Sure.
So it's that, except it's the same African-American man who gets shot by the same white cop every day.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What a great idea.
Yeah. And that won him the Oscar. So
you should have got the Oscar just for the idea.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Why can't I think of shit like that? Wow. So you're moving. This is your future. This is where you belong. Do you see yourself doing anything outside of teaching now in terms of performance?
Yeah, I mean, for the last 3 years, there's a show on Discovery called Josh Gates Tonight. Josh is sort of the main guy on Discovery. He hosts a big show called Destination Unknown. Expedition Unknown, excuse me. And that's his main show. And then he has a talk show that follows a couple hours later. And so I write and produce, and actually for the first time in my life got to direct an episode of that this year because I shot, there's a theme for each show. And this one was secret societies. And I belong to a small group of mentalists. And so I didn't know this, but the host of the show used to be a waiter at the Magic Castle. So he said, I would love to shoot there. And I said, well, these mentalists, we don't really work the Magic Castle, but let's shoot it there. And I brought in some guys because mentalism is not visual. It's not like magic. And so not all of it plays well on TV, except for things like spoon bending, visual stuff. So I brought in 3 mentalists and myself as well. I did something too. And we all did a demonstration and in this one segment. In a remote segment, a field piece.
There's Farrington. He's doing straight magic, right? Glenn Farrington.
Yeah.
He's not doing the mentalism. Okay. That is so interesting that you got into that. I would never in 100 years have paired you with being a mentalist. It's
fascinating. Sometimes I wonder. I mean, my father was a philosophy professor for 55 years at NYU. Sometimes I wonder if maybe it's related to that. Because it's the psychological stuff, it's the unknown stuff, all that stuff is fascinating to me. I'm the biggest skeptic in the world, but the demonstrations that I do that I would call psychological bullying, where a person, let's say, makes a choice between 50 different things, and I've predicted their choice. What they don't know is just through linguistics, through language, I've made them pick that one thing. And
now I'm going to ask you for an example.
I could only do it if I was there in the room with you.
Okay. All right. Then good.
Because 85% of what I'm able to do is taken away. It's a very personal thing. And in order for me to do the persuasion suggestion thing, I have to be present, unfortunately.
So it's not that different from stand-up, really. We what we do is the persuasion thing as comedy.
It is absolutely related. I think that has a lot to do with it too. Yeah. That's really a great observation because when I started with Dave, I would get 300 jokes, whatever. Dave wouldn't want to read 300, so I'd pick like 75 of the ones I thought were the best. And then I would get the sheets back with the ones that he starred that he wanted Tony to put on cue cards. And invariably, I would find ones that I knew were funnier than some of the ones he picked, but I knew that those just struck Dave as funny. And that's why he won all the Emmys, is because he didn't try to cater to America. He did what he thought was funny. You know what I mean? So there were jokes that got nothing, but that every comedy writer in America was probably going, that's brilliant. Like my favorite joke that Letterman ever did got nothing. And the joke was, everybody in New York is sick with the flu. In fact, the 2 guys that wrote this joke got sick with the flu, had to go home and couldn't finish it.
That's a great
silence in the Ed Sullivan Theater, and I'm backstage, and we are just all losing it. I mean, I already knew the joke was going in there, but the fact that it got nothing and is so damn funny that an anti-joke, basically. Name one other host, including Johnny Carson, who would ever have taken a chance with that joke.
No, but his persona could do that. He could get away with that. And, and even though Carson would acknowledge when a joke, but he would do it in that, that's that one bomb, that Gleason kind of thing.
Right.
Dave's reactions, they were sincere. They were sincere. They were true. I mean, that's what made them so funny.
Yeah.
And he did it that so sarcastically that you just go, "Ooh, I love it." There, such a good line. Well, yeah, I've had that happen when you hear something that you're writing, and this happens to me all the time, and I'll try it out. You know Anita Wise, right?
Of course, I love Anita.
Okay, I know Anita too. She's my go-to buddy and my traveling companion.
I
Sometimes
see
on
that
the
you
road.
guys work together a lot.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
always makes me smile.
Oh, she's the best, and I'll call her and I'll read her a joke, and in my head I can hear me doing it, and I know it's funny, but she goes, in that Anita way. Well, that's good. What about if you did? Why do you just tell me the joke sucks? I don't think it does though, and I've had that happen where, so every reaction from comics I respect was not great, but I kept working it because in my heart I felt it was funny. So to aspiring comics, to aspiring comedy writers, what's your advice? Do they stick with it, or do they abandon the joke and move on to something else?
Definitely,
if they truly believe it.
It's funny. Maybe I shouldn't be saying. I don't think it matters that I say this. I saw Rita Rudner on social media, and I used to see her every night at the Strip for years.
Sure, yeah.
I haven't seen Rita in probably longer than I haven't seen you. And so I wrote her and I said, it's great to see you here, and I'm so happy for you and your career and your family. And I said, and I just want to thank you because you taught me a valuable lesson, which was even when I had just passed auditions, I was basically, there were really not many open mics, but you know how it was. You passed auditions,
sure, yeah.
You had to pay your dues by hanging out till 2 a.m. If there was any crowd left, you'd go on. And so I thanked her because I remember when Rita would come up with a new line, not only would she run it by guys like Seinfeld or Reiser, or whoever was, senior at the club there, or, Larry Miller or whatever, but she would even run it by guys like me that had just started. There was no ego at all. And what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And so
I'll tell you Rita's story. Rita and I used to go. We worked at Good Times. Remember Good Times on 3rd Ave? The most appropriately named club.
My message to comics is stick with it and keep trying it out and get as much feedback as you can from other comics.
Yeah,
there may be one comic who can't write for his own act like me, but has a great idea for you. So
yes, and get in writing groups too, because I think Anita and I are in a group with a bunch of other comics too, and it's such a help. It's so supportive that, and you could really collaborate. You could really knock it around. You could really dig deep to find the joke if it's not quite there. So yeah, it's a great business we're in. I do believe we're very lucky. We're very lucky that we survived.
We're particularly lucky we started when we did.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Would you have started today if you had to do it over again?
I don't think I could have stuck with it because I know comics that are so much more advanced than I was back then, and yet I was able to make a living, and they have to have day jobs. Not because I'm funnier; they're funnier. That's the part that's so scary. Is there people that are much further along that have been doing it more years? Like let's say 3-4 years into my comedy career, I was barely making a living and I wasn't that strong. But I see people that have been doing this now for 10 years that are very strong, but still have to have a day job because the clubs don't pay anything.
That is correct. But I think the thing that I want to phrase this correctly. The thing that you have that they might not have is that they see the business side of it too. They see that this is a business, and you can't just wallow in your own genius. You have to show the world, and you have to learn how to play the business, play the game, the business. I never could. I sucked at it. I was terrible at it.
Same.
I know a lot of comics that were that way too. But you asked the questions like you asked Chef, hey, what if I wanted to get these jokes today? How do I do that? I never would have the nerve to do that, first of all, and it would never even occur to me to ask him because I would feel like I was imposing.
At that point, it wasn't a hard ask because I'd already been writing Mars stuff, so I knew I could do it. I'd already been there for probably 3/4 of a year or something, and so I knew that this was something that I could do. And really, I learned very quickly it was something that I could do better than stand up. And again, it
And
was
that's
writing.
that's a key to be able to
And
admit to yourself that you could do something
after
well.
14 years of doing something I wanted to do since I was 14, so, decades, I realized, holy shit, that's not what I was meant to do. This is what my strength. And so, and now I believe it's teaching, you know.
Teaching is wonderful. I taught for 10 years. I totally get why you're
It's
doing
the
it.
best. And
Yeah, it really
especially
is.
when I work with really advanced comics, like I work with, and I definitely will not call it teaching. Do you know Emma Willman?
Sure, I know her. Yes, I not well. I mean, I did a show in the city
Yeah, we've
with
been
her.
working
Yeah,
together for about 7 or 8 years already,
yeah, she's
and
doing well. Mhm.
she's so damn funny,
Yeah,
way funnier than I could ever be. And it works so well because Emma's brilliantly funny, and I'm the structure guy. And she's not, I mean, she'll very open. She's not big on structure. So she came to me, and whatever it was together, it's just so great. So much fun doing sessions with her.
that's what. So you work with individually as well as in
Yeah,
class
I work
situations with comics.
individually
Okay.
with people too, for both
How
late
do
night and.
they? Well, why don't you tell people how to get a hold of you in case they want to
Well,
work
people
with
can
you?
always reach out to me either on Instagram or Twitter at Gabelson, Gabelson, or they can email me at gabe.abelson, Abelson, at gmail.com.
And if you were, a comic at any level, but particularly if you're looking to move to the next level, this is a guy you really want to get to know because I don't know, take my word for it, but you know what the hell he's done. Match your
Thanks.
resume. Yeah. Oh, come on, Gabe. Why would I? I love what you've done with your life and your career and your daughter just
Oh,
got
my God.
into
And she's
tell
still
me.
waiting. I mean, she's not definitely going to even take that one. She's waiting to hear from UCLA and USC because those are even better schools. If she gets in there, she'll take that. And this is in addition to acting and modeling that she's been doing. She just decided 2 years ago, you know what? I think I want to take my LSATs, LSATs, and apply to law school. I was like, well, that's a lot of work. She's like, yeah, I'll take a couple months. I was like, Samantha, 2 months, she takes her LSAT, she gets almost a perfect score. I mean, my wife and I have talked about this. She get this from you? No. She get this from you? No.
Well,
She
don't
got
say that because
before she got
no,
it.
but think back to the stories that you were saying earlier on at the beginning of this interview, where you just realized you could do something, and that's
Yeah,
what you did. You went ahead and did it. She's doing the
yeah.
same thing, so she does get it in part from you. Yes. So shut up.
Well, thanks for saying that.
I'm coming. I'm going to come out to LA probably sometime this year. So let's get together for lunch or something like that.
Absolutely, we
Yeah,
must
I'd love to
for
hang
sure.
with you a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
terrific.
And what? So, what
Um,
was your Rita Rudner story?
Oh yeah. So no, that was basically the same. We used to at good times we'd do our show, our sets there, travel across town, and just and every morning my phone would ring almost at the same time. Not a hello. Is this funny? And she's a hard worker,
That's perfect.
and she would
Yep.
run the joke by me, and it forced me to create too because I'm a lazy writer.
So much.
I am very, very lazy, but
That's the
uh,
weirdest thing. If I write 3 new jokes for my stand-up a year, it's a lot. And yet I can sit down and write 20 jokes right now on topical stories. Nope. Easy.
see, I couldn't do that. For me, it's I have my standards are higher now because I've got the 2 albums out. I'm getting a little bit of time of notoriety, so people
You
want to
certainly have.
they expect a certain thing, but um I'm always pushing myself to go higher and go deeper and impactful because I feel like I have a responsibility as a trans person.
Mhm.
The way people judge me, and so I want to give them quality. So um,
And you
anyway,
do.
thank you
Yeah.
very much. I appreciate that, and coming from you, I take that as a high compliment. So,
Oh,
and,
absolutely. No.
well,
Like I said, it's just that I'm having so much fun watching your careers.
nobody's more surprised than I am, Gabe. I was not. This was not my intention to ever get back into stand up. It just happened. So The accidental universal energies coming together, So, but I got to thank you so much. One of the joys of doing this podcast is reuniting with people I haven't seen in so many years. That I always liked. And you were one of those guys. You just have this really swell way about you. Just a very good,
Oh,
gentle
shucks.
energy.
Thanks. I feel the same way about you. I do.
So
I feel the same way about you. I never felt that you were someone with an agenda or anything like that. You were just a straight shooter and easy to talk to. And I was kind of shy, so I was not like a mover shaker, this guy, that guy. So you were a person I always found easy to talk to.
Oh, and I always looked at you and like he's like he's got this little boy quality about him that you want to hold him and go, it's okay, we're gonna get through this, So I thank you for that, and I thank you for coming today because
absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's such a kick to see you again.
Well, we'll hopefully next time it'll be in person. If you come east, let me know.
Yes, absolutely.
All right,
let's
buddy.
Talk on the phone sometime.
Yes, I actually do have something I want to talk to you about anyway. So yeah, we'll do that. All right. I love you. Where'd he go? We cut him out? Oh, we cut you out. Oh, okay. I just want to tell you I love you and thank you so much. And I want you back too. Okay.
Awesome. Love you too, right. Julia. It's good to see you.
Bye-bye. Love you. Bye. What a nice man he is. I know you had some technical difficulties.
I know.
I know, but we're working on. That's what you get when you live on.
I know. I live on Walnut Mountain and
Walton's Mountain. Walton's Mountain. Yeah. So all right.
Well,
so we're gonna before we go.
But I have questions for you. Are you smarter than a 70-year-old?
Okay, go ahead.
All right, you don't even have help tonight. So
I know. I'm all on my own.
All right. You ready?
On my own.
You ready? You ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Shush. Here we go. True or false? We'll start with true or false. I want to warm you up as to not stretch a muscle.
True. Okay, go ahead.
You have a 50-50 shot, sister. All right. True or false? Eggplant is a vegetable.
It's not a fruit. True.
False.
What is it?
Well, that I knew you were going to ask me that. It's not.
Well, then what the hell do you get a question like that for?
I only know true or false. I don't know if it's like what it
Holy
is.
Shit.
You know what? Right. I knew you were going to ask me that.
Then why did you get the answer?
Shut up! I'm getting.
You know how much eggplant I eat. You know how much I love it. You know what the Italian word for eggplant is?
What?
Melanzane. Melanzane. This is really, truly exciting watching. I think our numbers are going to skyrocket.
It's a fruit.
Is it really a fruit?
You're a fruit. It's a fruit. Everybody's a fruit.
Hey, yeah. Ooh,
right.
Go ahead.
Next question. What is the most expensive spice by weight?
I know this too.
Do you?
Yeah, it's called. Oh God, it was right on the tip of my tongue too. I'm going to come back to that. All right, give me the next one.
All right, next question. What language does not use gender as part of their grammar?
Farsi. Japanese, Hebrew,
Gobble.
Turkish.
Okay. Exactly. All right. I did give you a clue there. All right. Two more questions. Here you go. You were a pilot. In flight systems, what do the initials TCAS mean? TCAS. In flight systems, what do the initials TCAS? T is in Tom, C is in cat, A is in astronomical. And
the AS stands for airspeed.
No.
No?
TCAS.
True course. Is that partly right? Is that part of the answer? True
No,
course.
this is why you were not a good pilot.
I wasn't a good pilot. I got lost a lot.
Traffic collision avoidance system.
Oh, I didn't have that on my planes. I flew little
just
single
saying.
engines.
All right. Last question, and then we'll follow up with it.
Saffron. Okay. Saffron.
That's it. That's right.
Thank
that
you.
is
Okay.
the most expensive spice. Okay, last question. What band What was banned in Indonesia for, quote, stimulating passion?
Chewing gum.
No.
No. Friends, the TV show Friends.
No. Although no one could resist Joey.
Yeah. What was banned for stimulating this? Bill Cosby. Dating Bill Cosby.
All right. No. The hula hoop.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. All
there
right.
you go. That's your 5 questions.
All right. So how did I do? I got 1.
You got 1. You screwed
I
up.
could have gotten the eggplant one because I said, is it a
saffron.
fruit? Yeah, I said, is it a fruit?
You didn't get turkey. You didn't get the traffic collision. And you didn't get the hula hoop.
All right, I'm an idiot. Okay, so there.
You're not real bright.
Okay, I also haven't eaten my dinner yet, so
all right, well, go eat your saffron and your turkey.
Adieu.
Adieu.
Yeah. All right, kiddos. All right, people. We'll see you on the next episode when we will have as our guest somebody.
We're going to interview the Hound.
That's right. We're going to interview the Hound. Adios, amigos. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, 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 yo. Icky, picky, ba. Do-di-da-di-do. Itchy, pitchy, witchy, glitchy, yucky, yucky, yo. That language doesn't have any gender either. No, my language, no. All right. Get us out of here. What the hell is that? Backing up already. We're not even